I'm gonna be so real. Ambitious professional women don't need to be building their personal brand on all of these platforms. In fact, most of them are a waste of time and just leading to burnout effectively as you spread yourself too thin. And you're actually not seeing the results you want, which are ultimately, for most of us, opportunities. Professional opportunities from speaking, from job opportunities, from clients, all of these things. You're getting nowhere, and yet you're doing a lot of work. Instead, there's a very elite combination that's actually done it for me in terms of accessing the opportunities that I want, and for the women that I've worked with. It's actually what I'm calling the depth and reach combination, which is LinkedIn and YouTube. And in this video, I want to share why they matter, how they kind of work together, and a quick game plan to get you set up effectively if you're really serious about this and just want to hit the ground running. So let's start off with why LinkedIn matters. Now, before you run away and you're like, I'm over it already, I think there's some things that are worth exploring. LinkedIn, for starters, is one of the highest ROI platforms if you're interested in these type of opportunities. And what I mean by this is, for a relatively small following, right, relatively small engagement, you can actually see these big gains and these outcomes in terms of who may be in your DMs asking you to speak, or recruiters actually sending you opportunities, or people asking to work with you. And you don't require these vast numbers, this virality, to actually start to see the opportunities that you want. That is fantastic, especially because most professional, ambitious women I know, like myself, aren't trying to spend our whole lives on these platforms. So we want leverage, right? We want, for a given input, we want disproportionate outputs. And LinkedIn is fantastic for that when it comes to professional opportunities. If I just name some of the ones that I've got from this, I have job opportunities. Those ones are kind of just the obvious ones, but also speaking opportunities in multiple sectors. Actually brand deals, which is interesting because, and we'll speak a little bit about how the platform's changing, but actually inbound brand deals coming from LinkedIn as well, as people want to get in front of the professional audience that I have built and the audience that I've cultivated in community in general. The next reason why it's worth being on this platform, especially if you're like, you got spice to you, you got a little bit of interest to you, again, you're a multi-passionate babe, the platform is craving originality, personality, and moving away from the stiffness. One thing I hear is that I don't want to go on LinkedIn because it feels icky, like it feels stiff. Everyone speaks in corporate speak, and it's not a fun place to be. And I get that, but actually that's why you should be there if you're not this type of person, to inject this personality, inject the energy that is missing on the platform, but is slowly increasing. That there are more creators on this platform that behave a little bit more like you might see on Instagram or Threads or things of that nature. And while some people complain about it, a lot of us are kind of enjoying this freshness to the platform, and it can mean that you can stand out further. You don't need to kind of just assume the form of a corporate robot. In fact, don't do that. The next thing is you can actually structure your profile and carve out a body of work that really highlights the opportunities that you specifically want, right? Not just general, but like actually go really hard for this. And what I mean is you have a profile, right, when you get onto LinkedIn that you're able to customize and really highlight the things you're most interested in. Now, there's things like the featured section on LinkedIn, which is like the summary or the highlight of effectively your body of work and what you're interested in. So if I'm somebody, for example, who is really interested in public speaking, and there was a lady in my last cohort where that was her main focus, was getting on more stages and being invited and paid to speak more. Well, now what am I going to do in my featured section? This is my opportunity to position myself exactly, without question, for the opportunities that I want and what I want to draw in, right? So yes, you get to my body of work in terms of like my posts, my IP, all the things that I'm talking about, and we can get onto that later. But now I get to direct your attention to exactly what I want you to see, what I want you to see about me immediately. And there's a number of things I can put into the features section if you're more business focused, right? Or you have a client base, or you have a consultancy even outside of work, or within work, you're a developer advocate, for example, you want to signpost to some of your blogs, your articles, you can use that featured section to do just this. That's a fantastic kind of positioning opportunity. The next thing is actually the fact that this is kind of a text-based first platform, which means you don't have to engage in video if you don't want to on this platform itself. And that means the input time can be lower. I have been making videos for over 6 years now, and I know that they take a lot of time. They're worth it, and we'll talk about YouTube later. But if you are thinking I have a time constraint at the moment, and therefore I'm thinking about how I can, put myself out there, build this personal brand, but maybe it only involves writing a certain amount of time, or actually you just like writing, LinkedIn is a fantastic place to be. Text-based posts do fantastic on the platform. They're actually what I lean into the most. Even though I'm kind of like a video first creator, I like to use them. I like to get my thoughts out, my ideas out, my structures out, my position out in text format. And one of the final real strong points of LinkedIn is the DM feature, actually. And the fact that you don't necessarily just have to wait until these opportunities come to you. That's fantastic. And a lot of the setup that we optimize for and that I optimize for in terms of my own life and when I work with other women is for inbound. But you also have outbound, On this platform, you have some very serious people in terms of what they've achieved and what they're willing to share. And there's an openness as well, right? Some people are just going to ignore your DMs, and that's okay. Some of them are just busy and they're inundated, and that's also okay. You'll be surprised at some of the relationships that you can build and the opportunities that can be created around that, right? So you have the power of outbound and outreach as well on this platform. I think the final thing I'll wrap up is the network effect. And this is one of the defining features, I think, of LinkedIn. It's the fact that the way that the network is featured is, of course, if I like something from your post, and my whole network, or potentially a subsection of my network, is now going to be exposed to this, right? So you might not know Joe, Harry, Sally, Ricky, whoever those people are, but they are now going to be served your content because they're thinking, if Adama likes this, there's a possibility that her network likes this. So you can start to tap into and leverage other people's networks just by this. And this is the whole reach part, right, of the depth reach combination that I'm speaking about with LinkedIn and YouTube, which is a great segue into YouTube. So why YouTube? Need I say anything? Here we are, me and you and I on YouTube. One of the biggest perks of YouTube is depth and the ability for you to showcase more of you, more of your personality, your skills, your interests. When I speak about being multi-dimensional, multi-passionate specifically, I think YouTube is a great platform that allows for that. That because I have this space and breadth in long form video to talk to you, to explore my ideas, I don't have to do everything in 30 seconds. And I think it's great for more holistic personal brand building, especially as a professional woman with multiple passions. And as an extension of that is a fantastic evidence bank, or terms of like proof of what it is that you genuinely care about and what you're good at and what you can speak about, right? We're speaking about how difficult it's becoming to maybe get certain jobs or get certain clients or do certain business. Whereas when you have the depth of you speaking on YouTube and sharing, you start to eliminate a lot of maybe competition because you're showing up here and your proof, your evidence to an extent is right here for everyone to see. Like I always say, it's kind of hard to hide in a 15, 10, 20-minute video in a way that it's not so on the other platforms. And so people may look to this when they're thinking about professional opportunities that they want to give you, which leads me on to one of the other great things about YouTube, which is the wealth of skills that you're going to be building, which include public speaking, right? Your ability to articulate your ideas, your viewpoints, all of this is just improved by being on the platform and by speaking, things that fall into or like have a knock-on effect in your professional life, right? So directly those skills translate when it comes to communicating in the office, but again, also people can see you live on the platform doing this. And it's a showcase of that skill as well, not just the expertise. And ultimately, everybody's trying to get back to YouTube, the influencers, the professionals, the entrepreneurs, like everyone's seeing the power of this platform, especially, right, because of the whole AI slop thing, which is just the influx of AI created content and us moving into a kind of lower trust in society, in effect, which is where like, we're not sure if we can believe what we see, what people say, but YouTube with the depth feels like somewhere that you can have like a little more trust or leaning towards it. Because again, the time spent with the person, right, your ability to see them in different lights, see them move through ideas and emotions, that is really great for trust building and combating the issue with AI content and where we're moving in that sense. And so why not get a head start and start building on the platform right now as a professional woman? But wait, there is more, because it's not just the fact that these two are great on their own, which they are. If you committed to just one of these platforms and did that for a year consistently with an attempt to improve, get better, use feedback, you would see an improvement. You would see a knock-on effect in your professional life. Like I would almost put money on that, but I'm not a gambling person, but you know what I mean. However, they also work together beautifully. And you will see so many examples of this if you're ever looking at my YouTube and you're looking at my LinkedIn, where ultimately the repurposing capital, the repurposing capabilities are unmatched. Because often I will do a LinkedIn post, right? Do my little beep, boop, beep, boops. It does fantastic, or it does really well. I'm getting great feedback. That's a sign that this might be something that's worth exploring in a YouTube video. Now I have a validated idea from LinkedIn with real people that I can turn in almost a structure as well, like an outline for a video that I just need to expand on and then talking through the video, right? Other way around. I do a YouTube video, it does really well. There's probably like 5 LinkedIn posts in that one video, that one 15, 20-minute video that I can now use on the other platform, right? And my body of work is cohesive. I'm not spending all of this time thinking of new ideas all the time because actually I'm repurposing the same ideas. Sometimes it is literally me lifting and shifting the LinkedIn post to the community tab post in YouTube. You'll see that I do that too. So like I'm making the most of my ideas and my content and growing across these two very powerful platforms without duplicating work when it's not necessary and without living for content. There's also times when, for example, you might do a YouTube video that really showcases something that you're focused in on at the moment, like a topic you speak about, your IP, whatever the case is. Why don't you put that into the featured section in your LinkedIn? Boom, we've highlighted something. I don't know why I keep saying boom. It's the South London in me seems to be coming out quite a lot today. You now have that in your featured section to showcase to others when they get to your profile. They are genuinely complementary in ways the other platforms are not. Like if I just take a LinkedIn post and try to post that to my Instagram, guys, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna hit like that. Whereas I can literally just do that for my community posts and it does well. Sometimes it does much better over there. Granted, my audience size is bigger, my community is bigger over on YouTube, but like, hello? It's like you're never starting from zero. It's the elite combination in my opinion. And I would focus in on these two as a professional woman who's ambitious, who has multiple passions over any of the rest. That's not to say you can't grow on the rest. You can grow on any platform. You can build a personal brand and, you know, gain opportunities from any platform, but the amount of work required, the time taken for you to start to see results, the synergy and the work required are not the same on all platforms. And that's just the truth. Okay, so I think you might be sold, right? I think you're sold on the depth reach combo if you've got to this point in the video. So let's talk a little bit about your express game plan. Like, how are you gonna get started with this as soon as possible? Step one is we need to get clarity on what we're gonna talk about. Now, we don't have the scope in this video to go deeply into this sort of work, but I do have another video where I share my Renaissance formula, which can be incredibly useful in terms of carving out your own lane that still relates to the vision and the goals that you have professionally, but also like as an extension of that as well. So this is where you're gonna put your skill, something that you're good at. It's usually going to be tied to your profession, right? The thing that you make money with. Then you're going to add your passion or a set of passions, something that you love doing, you care about, and ideally is quite complementary to that skill. All of this is multiplied by your energy, the unique way that you're going to show up on these platforms. Are you the loud, bubbly person? Are you the more quiet, but, you know, reserved, but still might tell you about yourself type of person? Whatever the case is, that's what you're going to plug in. And then your values, what ultimately guides the way that you move through life, your principles, those things at your core, right? And this is going to be your structure and what's going to allow you to start to think about the content that you want to make. So now you can actually take a look before getting started at my video where I talk about this, where I break this down in some questions that you can ask to build out your formula. But if you're serious about this and you want to do this with guidance, accountability, and formulate your blueprint out of this, which is where we talk about who you're speaking about, your audience, your IP, so your intellectual property, right? Your key messaging, your content pillars, you want to build this out and then also execute across these platforms in terms of knowing what to say, how to structure things effectively, how to organize all this for actual leadership opportunities, then you are probably going to be interested in my multi-passionate professional program. So the next cohort is starting up very soon and I do have some spaces still left. So if you're interested, you can book a strategy call just in the link below and we'll see if you're a right fit. So once you've got some clarity on what you want to speak about, I'm going to say head in to one platform. We're going to focus in on one platform to start with, build the habit, get comfortable with the platform, understand, you know, some of the nuances of it before we introduce the next one, right? So if you know that text may be something you prefer, or actually you just don't have anything on any of these platforms really, I would start with LinkedIn. It has the lower barrier to entry to an extent, and you'll start to see returns relatively quickly. So I would go into LinkedIn, and that's what I would start with and start posting with. I would do 2 to 3 times a week. Minimum twice a week, because you want enough data points to start to get better, improve, understand what you like, what your audience, what people are responding to. So that's why I would say 2 to 3 would be a great starting point. On the other side, if it's YouTube, I would probably commit to just 1 video a week, but every single week. And this doesn't have to be the highest production thing ever. Like, I'm not asking you to create masterpieces, but we can talk a little bit about how you structure a post in general. But 1 video out every single week, you sit down, record, do not buy equipment, right? At the most, you might want a mic just for clarity, but use your camera phone. Most of them are fantastic in good light. If you have a camera, use that. Now, if you're specifically wanting to get into YouTube, then I do have like a 7-day guide to getting set up on YouTube for free that you can just download in the description as well. It is geared to, in 7 days, get you from, I don't have anything on this platform, not a channel, not an idea of how to edit a video, all the way to my first videos out in 7 days. So you can check that out later. And basically, this is going to be a lot of resources for you here to play about if this is something that you're serious about getting into. So a quick recap of where we are in our express game plan. We've decided what we want to post about, structuring it around our Renaissance formula, right? Our positioning formula. We've decided on the platform that we want to post on and our posting cadence or schedule, 2 times a week if we're going to be on LinkedIn, once a week for YouTube, for example, so we can collect that information. Now, you might be looking at me, I'm looking at you, you're thinking, I don't know how to structure a post. How do I structure an optimized post? And I won't lie to you, there are layers to this. There are layers about what can get into a YouTube video, what can go into a LinkedIn post, how to optimize for converting, over optimizing for reach, over depth. But at the very simplest layer, you need a hook, you need a body, you need a CTA and some sort of asset. So number one is the hook. How do you ensure that somebody wants to stick around in your piece of content long enough to get the payoff, right? You have to give them something at that beginning point, tap into their human psychology, their desire to alleviate pain, something intriguing that they've never heard before or never heard it put like this, proof, so something that you have in your life, something that you've achieved that they want to tap into. All of these can make for a fantastic hook, and actually combining them can be very powerful as well. So I'll leave some like hook elements on the screen that you can consider and think about when it comes to like how you're going to structure your hook. But that is the first piece. And again, it goes for if it is a LinkedIn post and those first few lines of your hook, right? Getting people interested, getting them hooked enough to continue. And in YouTube, it's those first 30 seconds, usually to a minute. Really, it's the first 30 seconds where you're like, oh, this is why you should stick around. This is why you should invest some time and energy with me. So next is the body. So this is where we're going to share your insights, your tips, your journey, right? This is where we get into the meat and potato. Now, you might go for the story-based or the story-led approach to a body, which is where you share something that you've experienced, and that is like the kind of the journey that we go on. Or more of a tips, tricks kind of a thing, like an insight based. So maybe it's more of a listicle where you list the insights that you got, right? And that's the structure of it. You'll see a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of my YouTube videos are like this as well. The important thing is clarity. So is it clear what's going on and why the person should be invested in this part of the body? Or is it clear, for example, the tip that you're expressing? And is there a reason why I want to hear it from you? Which is why personal stories are so powerful in LinkedIn posts and why they're so powerful in YouTube videos. Like you want to hear the person's story, not just what ChatGPT probably could have told you or, you know. So don't be afraid to share more about you, more about your journey in the body of the text and really get people involved, get people invested. Okay, so you have the hook, the body, and then you have your CTA, which is a call to action, which is literally what it sounds like when you ask the person viewing your video or reading your LinkedIn post to do something, which may just be asking them to comment something or, you know, interact. Or for example, in this video, I might be like, download that 7-day YouTube guide, right? That free one to get started, or book the call, right? If you're really interested in working with me more closely to build this out, then book the call. Like those are call to actions, and they just give the viewer or somebody on the other side an opportunity to know what to do next, what makes sense based on what they want and what the outcomes they're going for. CTAs are very powerful, again, as a professional woman, if you're trying to guide towards certain opportunities or certain outcomes. And then finally, you have the assets. So for YouTube, I would say keep it simple. Like I don't suggest that you have loads of B-roll and things flying out, especially when you're first getting into YouTube. That's very simple. However, with LinkedIn, I would say always post with an image. I always post with an image. I tell women in my program, they post with images. It just seems to do better. People engage with it better. I think it also feels less bot-like because it's like, oh my God, there's a human being up behind this, or there's an image, there's an illustration to go with this. And it doesn't have to be fancy, it doesn't have to be crazy, but I have found that an asset with it does very, very well. So that's your structure of the content that you're going to be making, and you have some basic resources now to get started with that as well. Now, the final thing is, once you get comfortable with that first platform, whether it's YouTube, whether it's LinkedIn, it is time to introduce the second one and think about some of that repurposing that I spoke about before. So if you started on YouTube, how can I take some of my good YouTube videos, or actually just them in general, and cut them up and put them on the platform, or take the ideas and make them into a text post? How can I use the wealth of the body of work that I've been building on one of these to translate into the other? Similarly, if it's LinkedIn, like how can I take some of the posts that, you know, seem to be doing really well or getting traction or people are commenting on and turn them into a YouTube video? We're not starting again. We're repurposing, we're reusing the wealth of things that we've built up. And that's your game plan. That's your express game plan for the whole LinkedIn YouTube combination. So I hope that has been interesting and I hope that has been useful. These two platforms have changed my life. I always said that about YouTube. LinkedIn came kind of later, but boy, whew, if you see me over there, which you should probably connect with me if you haven't, yeah, I kind of enjoy it as well. I can't lie. Like before I was like, ew, yuck. But as it's changed, as I've changed, and as I've seen what it can do for me and other women, yeah, that platform, I have a lot of time for it despite like, you know, some of the backlash it gets. So in conclusion, you don't need to be on a million platforms. You do need to tap into one or two of these. And just as a reminder, there's some resources, the guide, the YouTube video in terms of how to plan your formula. But also, if you do want to book a call, you want to find out more about the program, and so we can see if you're a fit, then the link for that is also in the description, and I will see you in the next video.